Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp, the director of the Transportation Distribution and Logistics Institute at the Community College, Baltimore County.
Hey everyone, Mike Singer, Community Manager, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Welcome to the Shipwatchers Podcast, episode 31. Just two guys talking ship.
Did you have a good holiday so far?
Yeah.
I know
Yeah, it was
we're
good.
in between holiday.
Right. And for us, it gets broken up into a couple, family segments. We have our kids over, which is almost always on Christmas, and then we go to sister-in-law's house. And then we have a separate Singer Christmas, which is like my whole side of the family. So we did that yesterday. So
Nice.
it's been good. It's been nice.
The college has been closed since the 20th, and so this is the winter break season. So
What have you been doing with yourself?
absolutely nothing.
Oh, good. Congratulations.
I've got a long honey-do list that I'm trying to knock off, and
yeah,
that kind of stuff. But we had our normal family, Christmas get together. We got in-laws, got the sister-in-law coming in, and her family from the West Coast for New Year's. So
cool, very cool.
Be some good rest of the week. So. All right, we want to go ahead and get into our shipping updates for this week. It was a light week this week because of the holidays, but
right. So before we get into that, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available.
There you go.
Right. So as we always do, we're tracking the truck transactions at Seagirt, right? So this is container traffic, and this is just one metric we use to just kind of keep track of how things are doing at the port. Now, there's obviously a lot more things going on at the port. There's all kind of bulk materials and ro-ro and cars coming and going and private terminals. But, this is one thing that we can get from the state that they publicize that we can kind of help track for the audience. So the last 4 weeks, daily average. So what we're talking about is how many containers on average for that week. So 4 weeks ago, 3,159. 2 weeks ago, 3,478 with 2 days over 3,600. So that was, excuse me, that was interesting. Last week, 3,390. And then this past week, which was really only 3 days because of they had a 2-day Christmas holiday at Seagirt, where it's just closed.
Right.
Nobody's there. So 3,512 with 1 day over 3,800. And I would imagine that was, they did a little extra work that day to help get the throughput in 3 days.
I know that there was some. I know that Ports America Chesapeake and MPA had published a modified schedule for this week because of the holidays, and a lot of times they will open up on the alternate days some extra time to allow for more transactions to take place to make up for the time that was lost. But still, I think that there's a couple of things that's interesting to me, knowing that yes, it's the holiday week. There are some schedule changes that will take place, but we're also coming up to the January 15th deadline for the ILA strike.
Yeah,
and there is within industry discussion on trying to maximize those truck movements going up to that date, knowing that there's the potential of another strike looming. And if you want your freight moved, you need to get it out before that date.
right. Oh, and you just brought that up, and it just reminded me, and we should have this in our list of things to talk about today. But have you seen, I forget what the guy's last name is, John, he's on Twitter, the guy who does G Captain, him and Sal discussing the fact that the container companies or the shipping companies are going to start are going to start like an extra fee, like on January 15th.
Oh no, I missed that.
Right. And I don't know if that's related to politically or if that's related to the strike or something, but they're basically
Contract
like
oriented.
adding a line item fee to raise the price of shipping a container like on January 15th.
Okay. I haven't seen that. I'm going to look that up
Yeah.
and see if I can't make the correlation between the two.
Right, right. And you and I, we've talked about this before. We bat stuff back and forth during the week about what we want to talk about in the podcast.
Right.
And I'll whine for just a second. I lost my job this week, so I haven't been focused on shipping as much as I normally am. So I forgot to put that in our little chat when I saw it. So
Okay.
maybe we'll cover that next week.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Unless you can dig it up sometime during the podcast today. So not a whole lot of really exciting, related to specifically the port this week. So I thought maybe we would take a look at the schedule coming up. All right. So as we always talk about, let's go into let's go into the website, Baltimore shipwatchers.com. So here's our website. And if we go to shipping links up here, shipping links, and then the third one down, container ship schedule. And so this is the Ports America. This is the company that's contracted to run the Seagirt Marine Terminal. And then down the bottom here, we can see what's happening for this week. So you've got 2 container ships in now. And then so there's a Zim container ship in, and then another one in for 2 days. Oh, that's 3 days. And then an Evergreen ship with 1,390 imports. A Dolly sister ship with 1,600 imports. Right? And then another, this is a Ever Forward sister.
Okay.
Next Saturday coming in. So it looks like a pretty busy week. Yeah, as we progress towards that strike date, let's look at.
Go back.
Sorry.
Or no, right there. No, you're good. I'm sorry. It was right there on the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So you made mention that the Zim ship is in there for 3 days, but I wonder if it's just being held over on the 1st because of the New Year's Day and what type of terminal closure operations. It may just be an extra day.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I didn't think of that. So yeah, they might be working 2 days, the 31st and the 2nd, and they're just hanging out on the 1st.
Correct.
And if you follow along on the camera, on the live stream camera of the port, you can see that, because typically when the cranes aren't being used, they lift them up. But I mean, you can see them working it. So we'll be able to see that if they're not working it. All right, let's take a look at next 2 weeks of next month. Oh, this is interesting. Look at how much stuff is crammed around the 15th here.
Oh wow!
So you've got, well, this really isn't 4 ships, because this is a barge. This Columbia Freedom.
Correct. Yes.
That's the Jones Act barge, Philly, Norfolk, Baltimore. Just
correct.
Never stops. But still, 3 ships and a barge is pretty crowded at Seagirt.
Yep.
And then that next week, 2, 4, 3, 5. That seems a little unrealistic, but yeah. So who knows this schedule? And it's interesting, the Evergreen ships totally avoided this week, pretty much.
I see that.
Except for the Taipei Triumph, which is that T class of Evergreen ships that are non-branded. I guess they're leased out to another operator or something. I still don't have a firm understanding of what that is, but Anyway.
Be interesting to watch that schedule over the next 2 weeks also.
Yeah.
How it moves around and changes.
So I thought we'd share some really cool photos of what's happening at the port this week. So this is our friend Mark Hergen, Dead Rise Marine Photography. And he's out here on his boat taking fantastic photos of what's happening at the port. This is one of the ships at the coal dock in Curtis Bay, like on a foggy morning. Just a great shot there with the April Moran. Well, this will be coming into the dock. How do we know it's coming into the dock? Kipp for 128,000 Shipwatcher bonus points.
Is this referencing how they spun the ship around at Dundalk Terminal?
No. How do you know this is? If we know this is a coal dock, how do you know this ship is coming into the coal dock? All right, you're going to feel bad. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. So, and I didn't notice it first anyway because it's empty.
Oh,
right? So
okay. Oh, yeah. I can.
Right. Sorry. Yeah. So I didn't even pick up on it at first. I'm like, how the heck do I know what's going on here?
Of course, it's empty. I do this. Yeah, I do. I do the same thing with trucks going down the interstate. When you see the whole side jiggling back and
tires.
forth. Yeah, you're like,
sometimes you can look at the tires and see the weight on the tires. Or see how they're bouncing. Like if they go over a bump and they really bounce, then you know, right? Yeah. Or if they make a lot of noise and don't bounce, then it's got 40,000 pounds on top of those tires, right?
I can totally see that ship is empty.
Yeah. And then this is quite the dramatic photo. And so as we progress towards going towards the finishing of the Key Bridge demo, this is actually the A pier that got demolished by the ship. So the A pier behind me in my Key Bridge photo behind me, right? So one of them is still standing. This is the other one that just got demolished. And you can see how they line the entire thing with the wood so that you kind of a protection, right? So, and there's a word for it, and I don't remember what the word for it, but the wood around the concrete has a name. There's a term, and you can see how most of it is gone. So I remember in the week leading after the accident that people that live out on the bay were seeing these huge chunks of wood wash up, and they would report them, and then somebody, Army Corps or Coast Guard or somebody, would come get the stuff.
Sure.
But we won't be able to see this because this will be gone.
Correct.
At some point. So we won't have the opportunity to take photographs like this anymore. So it's good that Dead Rise Marine Photography is out there kind of helping to document this for us because, it's not 9/11 and, it's still happening, but, eventually there will be a new bridge here.
Correct.
And there will be young people that come up and don't remember the old kind of our job to help show what was once here. And the dredging continues. Now, this is our friend Dead Rise Marine Photography again, out here at night or in the morning. And this is, so I don't know if you can see it, but this is the Beltway Pennington Avenue behind here.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the first time in my 7 years of paying attention to what's going on with shipping in Baltimore that they've dredged actual Curtis Creek leading up to the Coast Guard yard. So I'm sure that's really exciting for them. And I would imagine this is just maintenance dredging, not some new approved depth, which I would like to see because the biggest Coast Guard ships can't get to the yard
Right.
because of the limited depth. Now, out further, like in Curtis Bay, if you will, I try to separate it between like the big part of the creek I call Curtis Bay, and then the smaller part I call Curtis Creek.
Sure.
Whatever. That's just what I do. But out there, it's 50 feet because they need that for the coal ships. Once you make that 90-degree turn and come in towards the Coast Guard yard, I think it's like 35.
Mm.
So, Mark with Dead Rise Marine Photography takes some great photos.
Yeah, some of the lighting, and the contrast lighting and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's great at that.
God, look how clear the lens. I wonder what kind of lens he's got on that to be able to pick up computer screens inside.
Lens,
Yeah,
computer.
Computer screens inside the bridge. That.
Yeah. Here's another shot of the anchorage in Annapolis of one of the Wallenius Wilhelmsen row-rows. This is a.
It almost looks like the logo there. That picture almost reflects the logo.
Oh yeah, right. Sort of, yeah. And then it's interesting because those of us who have been around for 5 or 7 years remember when Wallenius Wilhelmsen was separated into 2 different separate shipping companies, and had 2 different liveries. So one of them was white and green. The other one was white and orangish red. And then they came together and formed Wallenius Wilhelmsen Ocean, which is, if we look at the logo here, I almost forgot about that. See how it's a W and the O? And then the color is supposed to signify the ocean. That's part of their newish livery now. Those of us who are ship watching fans locally that are kind of new, you might be like, well, what are you talking about? That's what it's always been. But yeah, a little while ago, maybe 5 years ago, they had 2 different companies and 2 different liveries. So you would have 2 different color Wallenius Wilhelmsen ships coming into the port. And now they pretty much all look like this.
Branded all the same with the new changes, sure.
And then my photographer buddies know that I love to see more than one ship in a picture. So there's actually 3 ships in this photo. And this is Rudolph, who came to town.
Ah, okay.
So you famously heard.
I did see that this week that Rudolph was appropriately coming. They should hang a big red dot on the front end of the thing. Come on,
come on,
missed out on that opportunity.
Yeah, what are you guys doing? Yeah. And there was some action on this ship, and it looked like they had a problem with their anchor, and I didn't include the photo.
Okay.
Yeah, they were using this crane to actually pick up the anchor chain, what it looked like. So I don't.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's possible it got snagged on something. I don't.
You use the resources at your disposal in order to address your issues.
There you go. So,
do you have some information on this?
Well, I did talk to Andy from Ruckert Terminals.
Yeah.
And he said this time of year, these are typically like maintenance replacement blades. Now, these don't look that huge.
These are onshore structures. So these are structures that are made elsewhere, imported into the U.S.
Right.
Ruckert Terminal processes them off of the ship, and they put them on
Either truck or train.
Yeah, it's a truck, and then they use the nighttime in order to transient up to West Virginia and the Poconos Mountains where they're putting these blades up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you take, what is it, 81 or 83 or what, one of those mountain based interstates that runs through um, the Pennsylvania area, and you see
Mm-hmm.
you see wind turbines up there. Those are much smaller than what you're going to see offshore, but it's to capture some of that wind that's that wind energy coming across the mountain ranges.
Mm-hmm.
They are smaller. If they had it, they just wouldn't be able to pick them, get them up there as big as the offshore ones are.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Here's another great shot of the same ship. Lots of reflectivity there.
And get the water so calm, get the shot with the water so calm like that. It's impressive.
Right. And, we have one photographer who is out on his boat pretty much every day. Every day. I think he's up to, I don't know. It's the end of the year, so he might be pushing 700 days,
Mm.
something like that. Like on the row, on the water in a row, something like that. But yeah, thought we would show uh, some cool photos of
Yeah, absolutely.
what's some of the things that have been happening at the port lately.
So if somebody wants to go see those pictures, are they
Mm-hmm.
available? How can somebody else kind of track them?
Well, the best place really to go to see them would be on the Shipwatchers group,
Okay.
because there are a lot now. Some of the photographers, they'll post them on their own page,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them post to other groups. But these all came from our Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers Facebook group.
Great. All right.
So that would really be the best place to see those.
In other Port of Baltimore related news, it's been
Mm-hmm.
kind of quiet this week,
Right.
with the exception of um, some key bridge
Right.
movement.
And so to me, like, I don't know. There hasn't been much small news, but
Mhm.
isn't it funny how the stuff comes out? Like the big news comes, and maybe it's because we do this on the weekend, and then maybe the stuff happens on a Monday. I don't know. It's like what's the adage? Like, I don't know if you're a football guy, but like with NFL,
Could be.
the stuff that they don't want you to talk about, they'll bury like on a Friday, right? Then hope that in the noise of the excitement of the games this week, you won't pay attention to this little thing over here,
That's right.
right? But if they announce it on a Monday, then it's big news.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so there wasn't much small news, to deal with the port that I saw or that we know about, but then big, huge news because we've been anticipating. And, if you're on social media and you see articles about the Key Bridge and then you read in the comments, and then there's always somebody complaining, when the heck are they going to get started on this thing?
Mm-hmm.
If this was the Army, it would have been built by now. If this was China, it'd be half done by now.
Right.
It's corruption in the state. Everybody's taking money and lining their pockets. That's what. Stop. Anyway, folks are really interested in when we are going to start, the Key Bridge demo, if you will. And so this was huge news. One of my sources shared an email with me that was actually the notice to mariners from the Coast Guard.
Mm.
And you and I have talked about it, and I've been talking with some other people, and we thought, well, if they want to keep the date of when, if they're not going to make a big announcement about it,
Mm-hmm.
we'll know from the Coast Guard notice to mariners when there's a plan to do something construction on the water, they have to notify everybody.
Correct.
And so, if anything else, we'll find out about it when that notice comes out. And the notice came out and it says they're going to start on January 7th. So I'm just read some points here.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what the difference is here. The date of submission in the document is December 13th. Now, I didn't get the email forwarded to me until December 23rd. Now, does that mean the date it was submitted to the Coast Guard? Or does that mean the date it became official on the notice to mariners? I'm not sure. Somebody knows. Give us a comment on YouTube and let us know what that means. Mm-hmm. So I got this December 23rd. Geotechnical exploration, foundation test pile operation, and bridge demolition activities will begin on January 7th, 2025, and will continue through October 2028. So all I saw was bridge demolition activities will begin on January 7th. I got all excited, did a big red, loud, bold text post on the group and got everybody else excited. And then the real reporters actually did their due diligence. And I think somebody's from the state said, well, it's really going to be the geotechnical exploration and foundation test pile operations that's what's going to start on the 7th. The demo will be a little bit after that.
Okay. So there is a progression of scheduled work that has to take place. They're not going to roll out there on the 7th with the dynamite trucks and line the sucker, and by 5 p.m. on the 7th, the whole thing's going to be gone. That's not,
right. And that is how typically how people think. Right?
Yeah.
I heard they were going to use explosives. So that means they're going to blow up the whole thing with explosives. And you said it's going to start on this date. So that means the whole thing's going to be gone on that date, right? That's we tend to think in absolutes like that, right? So I thank you for pointing that out. But I did wanted to show some plans here. So let's get into that.
Okay, great.
The Maryland Department of the Environment had some cool documents. Let me see if I can. So this document is wetlands and waterways. It's in the wetlands and waterways documents, and you can see how they're talking about the temporary tidal waters impacts. But and you can see some information here. But I'm going to scroll past a good bit of this, and you can see how they have everything outlined in red. Of course, this document was prepared earlier, so you can still see the Key Bridge and the dolly in the photos.
Sure.
But you can see the areas in red, and they're talking about, removing these dolphins, removing these piers. But I wanted to get down into some more nitty gritty, if you will. So here we go. Foundation testing program and cross-section pile test. So they're going to be coming out here with a barge and driving some piles. And then this is interesting because we do stuff like this at NASA. We do a static load test. Let me get that back into the image here. A static load test. So what I think this is, so I'm sure they have the amount of how far they're going to drive this pile in. Mm-hmm. Now they might be driving it in. I would imagine that these are tests for new construction. And maybe they have to get, I don't know how it coordinates with the demo. Maybe they need to get these done first. I can't imagine a load test for demo. If you're a construction guy, you're a demo guy, I'm completely wrong. I'm an idiot. Mike at BaltimoreShipwatchers.com, or just comment on YouTube. And but I imagine that this is new construction.
I would agree with you.
Supposedly, they have a formula. They drive the pile until it stops, They measure, and then they know how expected, how far down the piles go, or how many times you have to hit it until the expected stopping point, right? And
Mhm.
then you build things on top of the piles.
Mhm.
But here, if this is anything like the static load tests we do at NASA, where, okay, you think this item can support so much weight. All right. So we're going to take a factor above that,
Mhm.
load it onto it for so many hours, and see if this item fails, bends, what would a failure be, right? And so I'm guessing, so you can see that down here. We'll scroll down. So this is the test pile from down the bottom here. This is the test pile from the previous image.
Mhm.
So let's go back up. I'm having trouble navigating here. Let's go back up. See, driven pile test. And then this says this is the test pile. So I guess they're going to cut it off. They're going to add a steel plate, a hydraulic jack, this hemispherical bearing, a load cell, some other steel plates, and then they're going to add this stuff on top of it. I imagine that this is a test to see, okay, when we load this much weight onto this pile, what happens?
Mhm.
How far does it move, or does it move at all? Does it move the expected amount? I don't know what those things are, but I would guess that this would have something to do with that. You know what it might have to do? Remember, and I should have this ready to go. Remember when we talked about 3 or 4 episodes ago where they're going to come out and build like these temporary bridge structures so
Mhm.
they can just basically drive the concrete trucks out all the way to the channel so they won't have to be constantly running barges out. So they're going to build this temporary bridge structure basically all the way out to where they expect the new supports for the bridge would be, which are going to be 150 200 feet wider than the current A pillars are.
Correct.
Maybe this has something to do with that because they are going to be driving a lot of piles to be building that temporary bridge structure. So maybe this has something to do with that.
Okay.
And then here's another document, and you and I discovered this months ago, where they have a whole detailed plan for how they're going to demo the bridge. And let me just scroll up here so I want to show people kind of what we're looking at here. There's an awful lot here. Anyway, talking about where they're going to drill, all the plans for that. This is how many holes they're going to drill into the dolphins, the big round dolphins, and then they're going to talk about they're going to use explosives and then pick the pieces up off the bottom
Mm.
and haul
Interesting.
them away. Right. Yeah, just some interesting stuff. Like here's the plan, like the original plan for the dolphin.
Oh wow. Hmm.
Right. And so you know, if you've ever been up close on your boat and you see these large rubber fenders that hang off the side of the dolphin, so if a ship did graze it, it wouldn't be hitting concrete; it'd be hitting these giant fenders.
Mhm.
And I mean, they are
They're
gigantic.
massive. Yeah.
I mean, me and my dad used to go out fishing, and we would you go by one of these things, and if one of these things landed on your boat, there would be nothing left of it. I
Sure.
mean, that's how big they are. But anyway, look, they're even talking about how high they can reach,
Hmm.
with, one of these hammering tools to demo some of the highest concrete, like from a barge. Um, here's the plan of the bridge with the different spans numbered. But then we get down into the details of what they're going to do for the road deck here. Longitudinal saw cut, saw and remove overhang, barrier, and deck. Longitudinal saw deck with excavator, pull back the section of the deck and cut and break rebar panel off the deck with a loader. I mean, so they're going to be cutting and peeling and, to get this concrete off of this deck. Because remember, one of these beams is like 500 feet long. It spans like three of these, three spans. It spans 4 vertical supports. Right? So I don't know how many of these I-beams there are, but
still quite a bit of effort.
Right. So it's interesting to see. And then all these different steps. Cut the cross frames.
So they've got it broken down per span section of what they need to do for each part because of, what may have happened to it during the collapse.
Right. So you can see how they're going to, do this half of this span, then do the other half, just on the edge. We're going to do this one section. Let me see if I can. Right. So I guess there's 7 I-beams for each piece of roadway. So we're going to do this one section, demo that, then we're going to do this other section. Right? And then that's going to be gone. Then we're going to work inward, and just piece by piece. Yeah. And then this is interesting. Blast Pier 24, which is where this little red mark is. Blast Pier 24 and drop span 25 and retrieve with dredge. So they're just going to blast this vertical. That whole F to EE thing here is just going to fall, and they're going to pick it up.
Think about it. It's out of the channel. It's,
you're on land here. This is just the first span. So you can imagine all the thought that went into. Now, they take down old bridges all the time, right? So I'm sure there's a process. I'm sure the professionals know how to do this, but I'm sure there was discussions about, how much went into figuring out how you want to do each section of this.
Right.
So, and here they're talking about blasting these 3 piers, right? So let's look at this. Let's see.
So if they're taking the roadway down first, in certain sections, if they take the roadway down and then come back and blast the pillars or the towers, support towers, this isn't going to be an all, let's just go light the sucker up and bring the whole thing down at once. No. This is a systematic, well thought out demolition process.
Yes.
For quite a number of reasons, environmental, structural, even from a logistical aspect, doing one part at a time. This is pretty thought out.
Right. And then when we think about it, look at these numbers, Kipp. This is crazy. Remember I was telling you about these beams? 895, a 900-foot beam.
Well, think about how the beam got there to begin with.
Right.
They made it across the ditch and floated it over here.
Yeah, 1,000-foot beam.
It was easy to make 1,000-foot beam and be able to transport it at that point. I don't know
but just think about, so you've got 4 lanes of roadway that is not separated. It's not like separated into 2 bridges. It's 4 lanes of roadway with some minimal shoulders that were applicable in 1977. So if they did what you just mentioned here and just drop these 3 supports, then now you've got 900 feet of roadway that's, how many feet wide, and it's a big giant chunk, and now it's sitting in the water. How are
How do
you
you,
going to bust that up to get rid of it? So you've got to bust it up piece by piece, and then you can remove these giant beams, and then
Mhm.
I would imagine you would bring the vertical supports down, because if you just
Agreed.
blow it up
If you just blow it up, it's not going to
and
work.
you've got this 900 foot long by 80-foot wide giant piece of reinforced concrete,
Hmm.
you now you're dealing with taking that apart in the water. It's just
Right.
not practical.
Correct. Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot more here, and we could probably get into that forever, but just
Is
fascinating to look at some of those details.
publicly available those
Oh
drawings?
yeah, absolutely.
So we should see about putting links up to where if any of the viewers want to go listen to it, or go take a look at all of that.
I
They
can
can.
I can give those to you.
Okay.
Absolutely. And
Sounds
we'll put those in later.
related to this new process. Related to this new process now. So I also took a look at the keybridgerebuild.com website
Mm-hmm.
that MDOT has put up to, talk about everything that's happened up until this point and talk about the future plans. They have a notice section on
Okay.
that website. And they did have one piece of information posted under /update/notices
Mm-hmm.
that if you have property in or around the Key Bridge construction site,
Mm-hmm.
you have the ability in January and February to get your dwelling inspected for the potential of any damages that may be caused because of the bridge rebuild. So if
Hmm.
you own property within the Key Bridge footprint, go to
Mm-hmm.
the website, read through what their instructions and narrative about dwelling based property inspections that they are doing for free,
Hmm.
leading up into the demo time period. So that may be something of interest for those people who own property within that footprint. I don't know how much that is. I think on the north side you got some Turner Station,
Mm-hmm.
communities that may have some involvement, and then on the south side and in the in and around the Curtis Bay area. But if that may be something of interest also to take a look at.
Hmm. I wonder what that is, because that sounds like, I don't know. Like
Uh,
what
it could
to me
it
it
could
sounds like they would be inspecting a beforehand in case there was something that happened during the demo. I don't
that's kind of if you not
like
we're,
you're
we're
setting a baseline so that if something happens, I don't
it,
know.
it kind of sounded like that. This is a voluntary process.
Right.
It's not. They're not mandating that everybody who is within this property footprint area to have this done. However,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm thinking, hey, you're going to be bringing existing structures down, you're going to be erecting new structures. There's going to
Mm-hmm.
be noise and sound and you know reverberations and all kinds of things that may cause may potentially cause problems. It may be something that you will want to go and be proactive in during this time period so that it doesn't address negatively impact your operations or your family dwelling.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, it does sound like they're getting out ahead of it. So that's good, being, anticipating.
Yeah. So I think over the next couple of weeks, then, especially after the new year, the actual date of the first, we're going to start seeing some correspondence related to the bridge, and because of that funding that got passed.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. What else is
Um.
happening?
Yeah. So one thing, and we chatted a little bit about this, whether or not to talk about it or to mention it. I want to go ahead and mention it to let everybody to just stay focused and be reminded of the January 15th date with the ILA negotiations and what they are trying to address with technology and automation,
Mm-hmm.
and what the ILA and the USMX can come into the agreement for the last portion of this next, this next 6-year agreement that they're trying to get signed.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been any press releases or I think a lot of things have been quiet because of the holiday week.
Oh, well, that's true.
But I think that coming up, I would imagine that there'd probably be some back and forth and some mentions about that.
Well,
I am hearing in industry though that for those importers who may have some
timely.
ship arrivals or during that time frame that you need to be cognizant of that you may be impacted again because of a potential strike. So we'll just have to watch that.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that they're at least talking in the background.
I,
Even we don't have to hear about it really.
right.
I would like to hear about it, but I'm hoping that they're at least both are trying to make some efforts towards meeting, because if they're not doing anything now, again, it's the holidays, right? So
Right.
people are, everybody, even if you're super passionate about your union or you're super passionate about, all the ship carriers coming into town, you still have a life, you still have a family, you still want to celebrate the holidays, right? So
Right.
everybody takes a break pretty much, but I'm hoping that they're both making an effort to talk, because if they don't, and it all comes to a head on January 15th, then we know what's going to happen. And we don't
Right.
want that.
Right.
I would submit that nobody wants that.
Correct. Yeah.
uh,
So we'll keep an eye on that over the next, because I think we'll have some things to talk about over the next couple of weeks with it. So
yeah, yeah.
from an upcoming events perspective, we've got
Mm-hmm.
the two dates that we talked about in the past two podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
January 15th, the Women's Traffic and Transportation Club of Baltimore. They have their January dinner.
I need to get my tickets for that, man. I
Yeah, go
want
ahead
to
and get
go.
your tickets for that.
You want to go?
We're looking at that to see what the scheduling might hold.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Friday, January the 17th, the Baltimore Port Alliance general meetings down at the pilot's office.
Oh gosh, so I'd have to see you like 2 days in the same week,
I know. How about
plus the
that?
camera. I mean, it's almost at the top there, buddy.
You're maxing out, aren't you? All right. From a history perspective, in the Port of Baltimore, I tried
Yeah.
to look. So for this episode, I tried to look at some what was happening around New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, and Port
Mm-hmm.
of Baltimore related aspects. I found this one. This one was interesting. This was not what I was expecting.
Okay.
So on January the 8th,
Mm-hmm.
1814. So that kind of helps you with the time frame. This there was a an advertisement in the American and Commercial Daily Advertiser. So that was one of the news publications during that time frame. They There was an effort to launch um, a a community organized group to address uh, Oakum Bay.
Hmm.
And so I had to do a little bit of research on what Oakum Bay was. That's the marshy cove down at the bottom of the Jones Falls.
Hmm.
And what was happening is during that time frame, you had oakum production, which is used in caulking and shipbuilding. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why I wanted let's think about what early late 1700s, early 1800s was here in that time frame, what was happening with shipbuilding,
Mm-hmm.
what types of ships that were being built, during this time period, and then so they had this tarred fiber
Mm-hmm.
that that
That's
was
Oakum, right?
correct. That was actually causing a health hazard. And then about that same time, they had an epidemic of yellow fever,
Mm.
and so between the yellow fever uh, issues and the oakum um, production and those problems right there in that area, this group was being asked to form so that they could address the issues with the wardens of the Port of Baltimore.
Hmm.
And so I went back. I said, well, what is a warden of the Port of Baltimore?
Right.
And so in 1783, Maryland established the wardens of the Port of Baltimore to oversee construction of wharves and maintain clear waterways and collection of duties from vessels entering and leaving the port.
Hmm.
So the wardens of the Port of Baltimore is the basis of the Maryland Port Administration. Okay, so
Interesting.
that's where all of this kind of circles back around. Um, but they were the purpose of this group forming
Mm-hmm.
to address the Oakum issues. They wanted to fill in that cove and build the city dock that's still located in today's
Hmm.
Harbor Point Development Project.
Interesting.
So all of this is a for what you see today
Mm-hmm.
in that particular area right there at the opening up of the Jones Falls is
Mm-hmm.
because of this particular initiative back in 1814.
Wow, that's interesting. Because it's not often that you can look at, a shoreline
Mm-hmm.
on a map and trace it back to an exact date or initiative of when said shoreline was planned or the
Right.
bulkhead was planned, or so that's kind of cool.
Found it pretty fascinating that something that seems so kind of minuscule. It was clearly in the moment and during that time
Mm-hmm.
frame. This was a major issue that needed to be addressed. But even from situations 200 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they still are impacting how and why we do the things that we do here in the port today.
Now, um, what's interesting is, and if Patrick Smith from the Pride or if Captain Jan Miles were on with us, we especially if Captain Jan Miles was on with us, we could have an impromptu 45-minute discussion
That's right.
on the history of shipbuilding in that area
Hmm.
going forward from this date into the 1860s, 1870s. Um, and I wish this was like a Zoom call. Hey, can we just dial up Captain Miles? Can we just, how do we call him in? Just dial him up on the phone and see if we can, you know.
I'm pretty sure we have the capabilities to do that here.
Oh, we're just noobs and we're
That's
clueless.
right.
Okay. Okay.
So I have some homework to do to learn how to do that, so we can do impromptu call-ins.
Yeah, that would be.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll have to try that. Like
Hmm.
anyway, we'll do like a dry run
Okay.
where the two of us are here, and then we'll either call my wife or we'll call the research department on the cell phone and see if
There you
there's a
go.
way to, you know.
Research department shook her head. So yeah.
So, you got anything else?
I think that's about it for this week. Just kind of quiet week for this week.
Hey, how about if we do a quick website tour? Can we do that?
Yep.
Just kind of go over that. Um, we do talk about the website and we do talk about what's on there, but we rarely take the time to show it. So, kind of just wanted to go through that. So, here we are, BaltimoreShipwatchers.com. And as I always say, there's a whole bunch of information on here. Um, But so if you just look at the tabs up top, so you can go to the podcast tab and then you can go right to YouTube or Apple or Spotify to get the podcast. So, you know, all the information that you really need about us or the ship watchers or the port is really here. And so if you can just remember Baltimore Ship Watchers and go to their website, you can probably find just about anything that you want here. Then if you don't know what, look at this, is cool.
Live shot.
Live shot of the port camera that we helped to set up. Now, also keep in mind that you can watch it here, but I would suggest that you didn't. I would suggest that you come down here and click on YouTube and click through to YouTube, because when you do that, there's actually a camera chat that runs on the side. And there's a lot of information exchanged, a lot of detailed information. There's quite a few knowledgeable people that hang out in the camera chat. And so you can get a lot of info and see what's going on at the port at any given time just by clicking through and watching the camera. Then we have our merch tab. So we still have calendars that are available if anybody's interested in those. I know it's getting to the end of the year, but we still have those. And you can use PayPal or Venmo to pay us for that. And then we still have our swag down here, which you click on this bonfire store items. Well, up here is the link, I think. And then, you know, there's t-shirts, hoodies, there's zip up hoodies, hats, coffee cups, all different shapes and sizes of t-shirts, ladies t-shirts, v-neck t-shirts. We even have burgees for your boat, or if you just think they look cool and you want to have one in your office.
Like I do.
Whatever. Like you do, exactly. Even have Helen Bentley's Port That Built a City and State DVDs that we still sell. Let's see what else. Then in the shipping links, there's this air gap. So for 150 Ship Watchers bonus points, what is an air gap? So what we're talking about is when the biggest ships come through, how much space is there between the water and the bottom of the bridge? And of course, this is affected by tides. So you can actually click on this, and I'm going to go ahead and do it and see if it follows. And so this gives you an actual real-time measurement. This is the pilots use this.
Nice.
Right? So, yeah, that's really cool.
That is pretty neat.
And then the sad thing is that the Bay Bridge and the Key Bridge used to have both of their information on this one page. And now we no longer have that. But there is the Chesapeake City Bridge air gap for the canal, which is about 135 feet. Right? So now we have these two separate links. Container ship schedule, which we always see. Cruise ship schedule. Let's go ahead and click on that. So you can come down here during any month and you can see all the ships that are coming into town. Now, a lot of times it's just Carnival, Pride, and Vision of the Seas on their typical schedule. Lather, rinse, repeat. But sometimes you'll see these small river ships come to town, which are made in Maryland. Don't forget that. They're made in Salisbury at Chesapeake Shipbuilding. And then you can go a month out. Now, here's the January schedule. Here's the February schedule for the cruise ships coming to town. So,
nice.
Yeah, kind of cool. Okay, let's go back here. There's a roll-on, roll-off schedule for the ARC Ro-Ro ships. And then a bunch of local websites: Pride of Baltimore, John Brown, Savannah, Historic Ships Baltimore, Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse. I mean, it just keeps going. Let's see what...
There's a lot of resources that you have listed.
Mm-hmm. For folks who are interested in Kipp and I and the Shipwatchers, these are all the press articles that, or some of the press that has been written about us. I think we probably need to add some stuff there.
Yeah.
Here is just a random list of places that I compiled where you can go, where anywhere where you can go see a ship. And I did this early on where I just kind of thought off the top of my head and just wrote them down on a list and added it here.
That's so
Because, like we've said before, once you get down into the industrial areas of the port, things are kind of fenced off for security, and it's really hard to find a place to go because we're all fascinated by ships. Okay, so where can I go see them? Here's a list. Here is. I thought this was cool. Remember when we first did this? This is the port commodity display that Baltimore Port Alliance
oh yeah.
drags out for the big things that may happen, like on Maritime Day, and they would set this up in the hall of the John Brown. And I thought, well, why don't we get a photo of this
Hmm.
and add this to our website, because now you can see all these different things that come and go from the port, and it's not limited to just the one day that they set this up at Maritime Day and just limited to the folks who happen to come out that day. Now
Sure.
everybody can see this and get a list. And, we have the big hitters, right? We have
Hmm.
containers, we have sugar, we have gypsum, we have ro-ros, we have coal, we have cruise ships. But as you can see here, there's a lot more that comes and goes from the port than just those primary items.
It's really great to see, like, and I've seen this display before,
Mm-hmm, sure.
but to many people many people don't realize what types of products, or they see containers and they can go, okay, that might be retail stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, you might understand that coal ships moving coal, but there's lots of other products that are brought in that we use on a daily basis that
Mm-hmm.
you know
Mm-hmm. And then here's a whole tab of port maps. And this is one of my favorites. This is, they're talking about, dredging this Seagirt loop, right? And this is how the container ships come in. These are the three berths that they typically would use to dock and offload the containers. And so they're talking about, and we've talked about this before when Jennifer Guthrie from the state of Maryland
Mhm.
comes in and gives us the update on the process of everything that goes into what it takes to get this dredging approved,
Right.
right? And so
And
there's a
from the legal and legislative perspective.
yes, yes. So we're talking about, it needs to be approved by the Army Corps of Engineers, and then it needs to go to the state, needs to go to the federal level, needs to be approved, and then the money needs to be allocated. It's a it's a long, kind of exhaustive process. But there's some other cool port maps in here with a list of the terminals or the depths of the channels in here that we can see. Here is the Dundalk Marine Terminal, all broken down into the various tenants.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah.
Right, because we've talked about that before. Certain ships go to certain places. They kind of each have their own place. Like the blue and white NYK Ro-Ro ships go up here to berth 1. Some of the smaller bulk ships come out here on this corner where the purple is. The Wallenius Wilhelmsen go out here on the end. Some of the other ones go here on the far end, which is like closest to the Key Bridge. Yeah, so a lot of info here on the website, and more info coming because we're going to make a whole new page about the range lights, which are, and you and I experienced this when we
Yeah.
were on the Brown coming into town. Um, as you come north of the Bay Bridge, and they exist elsewhere on the bay, But as you come north of the Bay Bridge, there is a lower front light and a rear range light, right? At two
Right.
different distances, two different heights. And so when you are, let me do it so the camera can see it. No, I still can't. When you get and you see the two lights lined up vertically, you are in the channel, in the center of the channel, traveling the direction, the heading that you're supposed to.
Yeah, that
And
was
there are 5 sets of those that go into the port. So we've done the research. I have a friend that's done some research, prepared a whole graphic package to add a whole additional page to the website,
nice. Okay.
all about the range lights. And then I want to refine this map page because the OSHA or the NOAA charts that we used to use, right? So let me just see if I can pull them up real quick.
While you're pulling that up, the being able to see how the range lights work while we were coming in on that Sunday morning on the Brown was really neat.
Mm-hmm.
One, to be out on the water, but two, like we were up on the gun deck at one point, and
Right.
you were explaining all of this to me. But being able to be that high, almost in a bridge height setting, really helped
Mm-hmm.
to understand that. But it was dead on. I mean, it was, we,
It was
the
really cool to be on a ship and actually see that, right? And then we wanted to get a video or photographs, and it just didn't. It just
didn't
didn't
work that way.
translate.
Yeah.
But anyway, you used to be able to go to the NOAA site, and then each area of the bay or each area of the coast was broken down, and then the bay is broken down into
Mhm.
each little. And so you can go and look at all the different. You can go and looking at each little different map, which would give you the detailed information for each specific area. Regrettably, all right, let's go back real quick. This is the map that comes into the harbor. So here's Trade Point Atlantic. Here's where they do the pilot exchange outside of Key Bridge, if you can see my mouse. And then, here is the main channel. This is the Fort McHenry Channel, as it's called. Here's Dundalk Marine Terminal. Here's the Seagirt Loop. Okay, here's where the cruise ships go up here. Here's where the coal ships go into Curtis
Mhm.
Bay. But you can't just click on one map anymore.
Ah.
It's one giant map of the U.S., and you pan and zoom into the bay, and then you pan and zoom into the port. And as you're panning and zooming, things are populating as you're looking at, which is a little harder for folks. It's a little harder for me, to be honest with you. I like these separate maps. So one of our friends who helps to run the live stream camera of the port has downloaded a whole bunch of these maps as PDFs, and we're going to add them to the website.
Oh, cool. All
So
right.
it makes it easier for folks to just go find a map and look at depths, look at berth names. Let's just real quickly zoom in here. So like right here, here's the great example of Dundalk Marine Terminal, and you can see the berths 11, 12, 13, 7, 8, 9, 1 through 6. Because a lot of times people are talking about, oh, well, which berth is that going to? And, so there's really a lot of information. You can see the different anchorages here. These are the temporary anchorages established, I guess, by the Coast Guard, by the captain of the port. And then these are limited to 24 hours. Like the big anchorage down by Annapolis, sometimes you'll see 10, 15 ships down there.
Right.
They can stay there as long as they want. Up here, it's a limited 24-hour anchorage.
Kind of the same premise of the commuter parking garage at the airport.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's a good tour of the website, and maybe some things that we're going to add to it here coming up soon.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So as we say at the end of every podcast, we are Baltimore Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Our main focus is probably our Facebook group, but we also have this podcast. We also have the live stream camera that we've been talking about. You can access all that on the website. And then we're also on Twix, Instagram, Reddit, Threads. We're all over the place. So, and most of the time you can find us by just typing in Balto Ches as our handle.
Yeah. And if you want to listen to the audio version of this this recording, you can catch it on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
All right, I think that's all we have for this week.
Yep. We'll watch what's happening over the next 2 weeks, leading into the 15th. There's a lot of things with ILA bridge construction, so we're going to keep track of what's that.
And a big shout out to my stepson Kyle for my Christmas present for my my new camera up here. Thanks a lot, bud. Really appreciate it.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right. Count it off. 3, 2, 1. Happy
ship watching.
All right, everybody. Have a good week.
Have a great week. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week.